It's the start of a new Champions League campaign. That means it's time for me, as a Manchester City fan, to get my hopes up, only to be slammed back down to earth by crushing disappointment. But it also means it's time to preview and predict the Champions League group stage. And as with my Premier League predictions video, I'll try to provide a good case and an explanation as to why I've ranked the teams where I have in these groups. If you're new, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more football videos. If you have thumbs and you know you're a human being, then do make sure to click like on the video because it's free and takes about a second. Without further ado, let's begin with Group A. Rangers made it to the Europa League final last season, but this is a really tough group for them, which contains England's second best team, Italy's third best team, and the Netherlands' best team. Now, it's early days in the Scottish League, but it's not a good start for Rangers. They've been battered by Celtic 4-0 in their most recent game, and their first game in these group stages is a really tricky game away in Amsterdam. And ironically, they sold one of their most important players in that Europa League campaign to Ajax. Calvin Bassey appeared in 15 of Rangers' 17 Europa League matches on that run to the final, and he became a club record sale in the process. And it appears that Rangers' replacement for him is Ben Davies from Liverpool, who made a grand total of 0 appearances for Liverpool. The long and short of it is Rangers are the worst side in this group. They have the worst coefficient in the group, they have the worst player quality, and their transfer activity hasn't been inspired. With their home atmosphere, I can maybe see them picking up a win, a draw, but I don't think they'll get any points away from home, and I just think they're going to finish rock bottom of this group. They did beat the second best Dutch team to qualify for the group stages, but they are now up against the best Dutch team, and Ajax will finish ahead of them in third place. But they won't finish any higher because they've been raided. United have taken their manager, they've taken Anthony, they've taken Martinez, Haller's gone to Dortmund, Gravenberch, however you pronounce it, has gone to Bayern Munich. But no doubt the biggest loss is going to be Haller, who was their top goal scorer in the league last season and also in the Champions League last season. He had a tough time at West Ham in London. However, he found a new lease of life at Ajax, and his goals are going to be sorely missed. He scored 34 goals for Ajax last season, and that includes 11 Champions League goals in just 7 Champions League appearances. He actually scored more than double anyone else at Ajax. Brian Brobbey is going to have to fill that void, but he's yet to score a Champions League goal in 6 attempts. They have signed former Spurs player Bergwijn, wasn't quite good enough to play week in, week out for Spurs, but he's had a decent start to life at Ajax. He scored 6 goals in 5 games, and Ajax generally have had a very good start in the Dutch League, but there's a huge difference between the Dutch League and the Champions League. It's a tough group, and I think they will finish third. They've obviously got a new manager after losing Ten Hag to Man United, Alfred Schreuder. He was an assistant to Ten Hag at one point at Ajax. He also won the Belgian League with Bruges, so he knows how to win things. He obviously knows Ajax very well as a club. However, there have been so many losses at Ajax that I just don't think they're going to be able to cope. As with Ajax, Napoli have had a very good start to the season in terms of their domestic form. They're actually currently second in Serie A, just behind I don't know who, and they've scored more goals than anyone else in Italy. What's interesting is this is going to be a very new look Napoli from what we've seen in previous Champions League campaigns. There is no Koulibaly, there is no Insigne, there is no Mertens. Collectively, they made 1,148 appearances for Napoli across their time with the club. So huge stalwarts for Napoli we're not going to see this season. Mertens and Insigne are going to be huge losses in particular. They were Napoli's joint second highest goal scorers last season. They have got a new signing, and I am going to check what his name is. Kvaratskhelia has already got 4 goals in 5 games for Napoli, so he has hit the ground running. They are coping remarkably well, and they've also signed Spurs' Ndombele on a loan. Interesting move, not sure if it's going to work out. They're going to be a very exciting team to watch, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if they top the group ahead of Liverpool, because Liverpool don't have a very good track record in terms of recent matches against Napoli. So it's not going to be plain sailing for Liverpool at all. Napoli are a very good side. They also had the best defensive record in Serie A last season. They produced the most passes, so they're going to have a really good chance of beating Liverpool's pressing game. They're also excellent at progressing the ball up the pitch. In fact, they were the best in Serie A last season, better than anyone else. Expect him to be constantly attacking Trent home and away. All that being said, you would be foolish to not have Liverpool topping this group. Now, this has been their worst start under Klopp. It's 9 points from 6 games. Not impressive at all. They've already lost against Manchester United, their arch rivals. They've dropped points against Palace. They've dropped points against Fulham. They were fortunate to get wins against Newcastle. They also failed to beat Everton in the recent Merseyside derby. And there's a current injury crisis at Liverpool, especially in midfield. All that being said, you do fully expect, well, I certainly fully expect Liverpool to get their act together. Players will come back from injuries. It's a tough start for Liverpool away against Napoli. They might lose that one, but I think by the time they face Napoli at Anfield, I think they'll have sorted themselves out, and I think they'll be fine. We also know that Nunez can perform at this level as he did for Benfica last season. they're going to be fine. In Group B, we've got Bruges defending Belgian champions, a triple B there. And yeah, great stuff. They are the champions of Belgium, but that is not going to account for anything in this group. I'm sorry, they are finishing rock bottom. Now, surprisingly, they did have a very good start in the Champions League last season. They drew against PSG, and they also beat RB Leipzig, but then I'm pretty sure they lost their subsequent 4 games, ultimately finishing bottom of the group, and history is going to repeat itself. Their best player's gone to AC Milan, and they're just not going to have the quality to get out of this group. Aside from Bruges, this is quite a balanced group, and I can see any of the other 3 qualifying. I've got Porto in 3rd. Their best players have left them. Coutinho's gone to PSG. Fabio Vieira's gone to Arsenal. They also had Luis Diaz last season. He's obviously now at Liverpool. Despite him leaving halfway through the season, Diaz remained Porto's 2nd highest goal scorer in all competitions, so it shows how much they relied on a player who obviously left them halfway through the season. Maybe they could get 2nd place, maybe 1st, but I really doubt it. Leverkusen are up next. They have had a torrid start in the Bundesliga. They've lost 4 of their 5 first games in Germany, but they haven't been helped in terms of their injury situation. Florian Wirtz, maybe their best player, certainly one of the most exciting, is a 19-year-old German midfielder. Only Mbappe bettered Wirtz last season in terms of goal-creating actions per 90. They've been without him. I'm sure once he's back, they'll be back up and running. Patrick Schick scored, I think it was 24 goals in 27 Bundesliga games last season. So if they're able to keep him fit, he should be able to score the goals for them. Leverkusen should be fine, but it is reliant on getting Wirtz back to full fitness. They've managed to hold on to their best players, Wirtz and Schick and everyone else. They've also brought in Hudson-Odoi on a loan move from Chelsea. Interesting transfer. Maybe he can rekindle the form that saw him linked to Bayern Munich a few seasons ago. By the time the more group-defining matches come up for Leverkusen, they should have their best players back to full fitness. Top in the group, it's Simeone's Atletico Madrid. There's not that much to say about Atletico Madrid. We all know how they're going to play. They're going to be incredibly frustrating and boring to watch, but they are going to get results fundamentally at the end of the day. There is no Luis Suarez anymore. He's gone to play in Uruguay. Simeone is going to have to be relying on Alvaro Morata to get goals for him, and he has had a decent start in La Liga. He has scored a fair few goals so far this season, but if I had to personify inconsistency, it would take the form of Alvaro Morata. Group C, this is the group of death, no doubt about it. And the first casualty is going to be Victoria. Poor Victoria. There's no point talking about them, really. They're doing great in the Czech League. They are the Czech champions, but ain't nobody care about that. I'm sorry. It's going to be like maximum 4 points. There's no way they're finishing higher than 4th. Barca will finish just ahead of them. They are a financial shambles, but they seem to have potentially sorted themselves out on the pitch at least. After wanting to seemingly buy every single player in existence, they eventually settled on Koundé, Rafinha, Kessie, Christensen, Bellerin, Alonso, but most importantly of all, Robert Lewandowski, who already has 5 goals for the Catalan Giants. He's so good, Lewandowski. And they've also had a great start in La Liga. They're currently 2nd. They've won 3. They've drawn 1. They've actually also only conceded 1. But I think they'll still drop into the Europa League because of the difficulty of this group and because of the challenge of Bayern Munich and Inter Milan. I'm not totally sold on the Xavi revolution. I still think there is a flaw in having to rely so much on young players like Pedri and Gavi when they're so early in their development. It will be between Barca and Inter, and even with all the signings, I still think there are fundamental issues at Barcelona. If they were in any other group, I would have them qualify, but the fact is they're in the group of death. A lot of players to amalgamate, still flaws with that club, still flaws with the team. And part of my reasoning for that is because Inter Milan Lukaku is not the same player, he's not the same man as Chelsea Lukaku. He will be back to full form for Inter in these group stages once he gets back from injury anyway. But once that happens, as long as it happens quickly, it will rekindle the Lukaku and Martinez deadly combination. And even without Lukaku last season, who did play well when he was at Inter, especially under Conte, even without Lukaku, I thought Inter were quite unlucky to not get past Liverpool. It was 2-0 in Milan. But that did not reflect the balance of play at all. And actually, Inter, even though they went down to 10 men, they actually managed to beat Liverpool at Anfield. And they also only missed out on Serie A by 2 points. And now we throw in Lukaku into that. And a lot of that Serie A winning team is still intact. And Inzaghi, who is the Inter Milan manager, he plays a much more direct and attacking style than Conte's Inter. So I do think we are going to have some really exciting and interesting games in this group. That being said, Inter have started poorly in Serie A. They've lost against Lazio, they've lost against AC Milan, and the first match is against Bayern Munich, which they will lose. But as the group progresses, Lukaku will come back to full fitness, Inter will sort themselves out domestically, that will carry out into the European form. And I just think that Inter will condemn Barca to Europa League football again. And that leaves us with Bayern Munich topping the group. Now for once, it's early days, but for once Bayern Munich are not dominating the Bundesliga. They're currently in third place. But it is early days and they are going to be one of the tournament favourites for a reason. Key departure this summer, obviously we've touched on him, it was Lewandowski from Bayern to Barcelona. He scored 344 goals in 375 games for Bayern Munich, so that's going to be a huge loss. They have brought in Sadio Mane, but he's not a nominal centre-forward at all. However, that being said, he has still had a really good start to life at Bayern Munich, and I'm quite interested to see how it's going to work because, in theory, they're going to have a much more fluid front three. They've got options like Mane, Gnabry, Sane, and Coman rather than central striker in Lewandowski and out-and-out number 9, so it could make Bayern less easy to predict. That's in terms of their attack. They've also improved their defense. De Ligt has signed from Juventus. Bayern were defensively suspect last season, so I'm guessing that's the reason why De Ligt's been brought in. Wasn't quite able to sort of like rekindle that Ajax form that we saw when he was like the 19-year-old captain at Ajax, something ridiculous like that. He's had a tough time at Juventus, but Juventus have had a tough time generally. So I do think that at Bayern, we are going to see the player that we thought we were going to see at Juventus. And they've also improved their squad depth with Gravenberch, Burke. That's another interesting addition. And I think that realistically, Bayern could easily win the Champions League. Group D is quite Europa League-esque in terms of quality, I think it's fair to say, but that does make it very balanced. Sporting just managed to qualify from their group last season, but they only did so by the skin of their teeth on head-to-head goal difference against Dortmund. And in a stronger group, I think they're finishing bottom. They haven't signed anyone of genuine note. They've lost Mateus Nunes to Wolves. They've had a poor start in Portugal where they sit in 9th place. Oh, and Pablo Sarabia, their top goal scorer last season by a mile, he's gone back to PSG. Poor transfer window, poor start. They've lost their best players. They got embarrassed 5-0 by City last season. They're not going to qualify. And neither will Europa League winners Frankfurt. They obviously had a great season last season, beating Barcelona, beating West Ham, and ultimately winning the Europa League final against Rangers. But they're going to be back in the Europa League after these group stages. Götze's a really interesting signing if he can stay fit. In this relatively even group, they're just going to miss out on qualification. Marseille are a really fun, exciting team in France, and they're actually currently level on points in France with PSG just ahead of them on goal difference. Saliba's gone back to Arsenal, which is a huge loss. However, there is sort of Arsenal-inspired contingent of players who are performing really well at Marseille. Alexis Sanchez, Tavares, and Guendouzi, they're all doing really well, as is Dimitri Payet, or based on last season anyway. He got 16 goals and 13 assists in Ligue 1 last season for Marseille. He is injured for the first few games in this Champions League. Certainly he's going to miss the first one, so it's going to be a question of how quickly can you get Payet back into the first team. They're a fantastic team in terms of carrying the ball, in terms of progressing the ball, and from an entertainment perspective, I really hope they qualify. By contrast, Spurs aren't entertaining, but they are nevertheless going to top the group. You can go watch my Premier League prediction video if you want a more in-depth analysis of Spurs and their transfer window. Basically, they've had a good start in the Premier League, haven't lost yet, haven't had the best performances, but they have been getting the results. And with Harry Kane and Son in your side, you don't necessarily need to play well to get the win because they are match winners in their own right. Group E should be pretty straightforward in terms of who's qualifying, but not necessarily the order of the top two. Zagreb are finishing bottom. They're Croatian champions. They are currently first in the Croatian league. However, when you're signing Norwich City centre forwards, you're asking for trouble, and they are just going to finish bottom. They're one of the weakest sides in the competition, and they're not going to be a concern for anyone. RB Salzburg could have had a chance to qualify from the group if they didn't sell their best players. We're talking about Adeyemi, Aronson, Kamara, and Christensen, all leaving. They did keep hold of Benjamin Šeško. He has caught the eye of Europe's elite. That being said, he is leaving Salzburg next season. That is confirmed, but he's going to RB Leipzig. What a surprise, but it's his opportunity to shine on the European stage. They've had a brilliant start in the Austrian league, as you'd expect. It's RB Salzburg, but they aren't going to finish ahead of either Chelsea or AC Milan. And speaking of Chelsea, they're the only English side I have not topping their group. They've had a really weird transfer window. They spent big on a lot of players. They spent big on some good players like Raheem Sterling. They finally brought in a striker in Aubameyang. Still not sure how that's going to work out. But their season has just been as odd as their transfer window so far. They were lucky to get a win against West Ham, VAR controversy. They've lost against Southampton. They've lost against Leeds. They dropped points against Spurs. They've looked laboured so far this season, and I'd be surprised if they top the group. Now, the saving grace for Chelsea is they don't meet AC Milan until match day 3. It's actually at Stamford Bridge as well. You'd expect Chelsea, in theory, should have sorted themselves out in terms of their domestic form. But all that being said, I am predicting AC Milan, the Italian champions, to top this group. In fairness, they were woeful in the Champions League last season. They were in that season's group of death, finishing bottom as well. They won Serie A, they've started their campaign strongly, and their individual quality has gradually significantly improved over the years. I'm not saying that AC Milan are back by any means, but it's a huge improvement on what we've seen. Rafael Leao, for example, already has 3 goals and 2 assists for AC Milan this season. Hernandez is a really exciting and attacking left-back, and Tomori, I think, is going to show Chelsea why they were wrong to sell him. I'm really excited to watch this Milan side, and I don't know why, but I think they might reach the semi-finals depending on how the draw works out. Next is Group F, and the European champions Real Madrid have been handed a very favourable group. As with Rangers, it's going to be Celtic, the Scottish side, who finish last. Celtic are one of the weakest sides in the whole competition, and frankly, I don't think they have a chance. Shakhtar will finish just ahead of them, but again, it's either or between Celtic and Shakhtar. I don't see either of them really troubling Real. Leipzig also are not going to trouble Real Madrid, really. They've had a really poor start in Germany. However, Timo Werner is back, playing in a system much more suited to his style. He and Nkunku are going to be the main source of goals for Leipzig. But yeah, Real Madrid, they're defending European champions, and I actually think they're going to win every single game in this group. In fairness, I thought they were quite fortunate to win the whole competition, and were probably fortunate from the PSG game onwards. They are top of La Liga. They've lost Casemiro, who was crucial to their midfield 3 when they won so many Champions Leagues, but they have young replacements and alternatives mixed with that experience. Kroos, Modric, that experience, but also think of Camavinga and Tchouaméni, I think it's pronounced, and also Vinicius Jr. And also, yeah, they have the player who's going to win the Ballon d'Or this season. Yeah, they're just finishing top. That being said, I'm going to predict them to not win the Champions League. I just don't see them getting as fortunate as last year. But who do I think is going to win it? I'm putting my neck on the line here. Definitely going to have egg on my face. But, you know, you got to go bold. And I'm going to say Manchester City will finally win the Champions League this season. They're the favourites, as they are every year. It doesn't really mean anything. But yeah, I'm going to have them win the whole Champions League and also top this group. But let's start with who's going to not top this group, and in fact, get the anti-top of this group, and that is Sevilla. They've had a rotten start to the season in La Liga. They're yet to win a game. They've lost 3 of their last 4 La Liga games, and only goal difference prevents them from being in the relegation zone. And that, coupled with their poor transfer activity, makes me feel like they're just going to finish last in the group, even behind Copenhagen. They've lost their 2 best centre-backs, Koundé and Carlos. And they have brought in some very interesting players, Isco on a free transfer, Kasper Dolberg from Nice on a loan, and I can see them getting embarrassed a few times in this group. Copenhagen are technically the weakest side in this group on paper, so I probably should be putting them below Sevilla. I don't know what it is. I feel like maybe it's because Copenhagen haven't been in the competition, I think, for around 6 years, and with their home atmosphere, I just think that maybe they could get a win against Sevilla at home and then maybe draw in Seville, and then both teams lose against Dortmund and City. But I can see it going either way. Speaking of Dortmund, it's going to be a reunion for Erling Haaland. He will be coming up against his former side. His replacement, Haaland, we talked about him in the Ajax segment. Tragic circumstances. He's currently undergoing treatment and chemotherapy for a malignant testicular tumour. Hopefully he's going to be okay. That the club have reported he will be fine and he will be back playing in a few months. So maybe towards the latter stages of the groups, Haaland will be back for Dortmund. But in the interim, he's certainly going to miss at least the first game, maybe the second, third, fourth, maybe he'll miss all of them. And his goals are going to be sorely missed because he was so crucial for Ajax last season. It means that Dortmund have lost Haaland and they've lost the player who they replaced Haaland with. So they're going to have to become heavily reliant on Marco Reus. It's also a chance for Jude Bellingham to advertise himself once again to Europe's elite, and they have been coping remarkably well given those circumstances. They're actually ahead of Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga table. Their old striker is literally destroying the Premier League currently, having scored 10 goals in 6 games for City. Haaland actually has more Champions League goals than appearances, and in what I consider an easy group for City, Haaland should be extending that record. City haven't been at their best so far this season, but in fairness, City do usually tend to start slowly and then form picks up as the season goes on. I also think City are just the best team in the competition, and they now have Haaland added to that. They scored the most goals in the Premier League last season, 99, without a striker. and they've now added a striker. They've already scored 20 goals in the league. They've strengthened the squad, and there's no reality in which City failed to top this group. The final group is an interesting one, but let's just get this out of the way right now. There's no point talking about this team from Israel. It's their first appearance for 12 years. They're maybe going to get the odd point at home with their atmosphere, but no, they're finishing bottom. They are literally the definition of whipping boys. Benfica have a chance of getting second because Juve are so poor, but the fact of the matter is they sold Darwin Núñez, who was crucial for them last season. They haven't really made any interesting signings. And I think losing Núñez will mean they fail to qualify. Juve will finish in second place, and what is happening at Juve? Simply, they aren't what they once were. You get the impression that Juve's chance of modern European glory, you get the idea that that's been and gone. They took a punt on Ronaldo, it didn't work, and now they can't even win the league, which they dominated for a decade. It's not to say they won't be dangerous, because they do have some brilliant players. You think of Vlahovic, who's already got 4 goals this season, Chiesa, Locatelli. Di Maria still has a lot to offer at 34. And could it be a redemption arc for Paul Pogba? No, probably not. He's a bit rubbish, isn't he? Dybala, Costa, and Chiellini, stalwarts for Juve, no longer at the club, and Juve have also struggled in the league so far. They aren't a bad side by any means, and really, they shouldn't have a problem with qualifying, but they don't play the best football, and they've also been handed one of the tournament favourites in their group. As with City, could this be PSG's year to finally win the Champions League? My thoughts on them haven't changed since last season, and whilst I think they'll top this group and top it with ease, 6 wins from 6, they are not going to win the whole competition. PSG currently top of the league, level on points with Marseille, but we all know ain't no one judging PSG by what they achieve in a one-team league. It's all about what they achieve in the later stages of the Champions League, and up until now, it's been a legacy of failure. In terms of individual quality, brilliant. Neymar already has 7 goals and 6 assists. Messi has 6 assists, and Mbappe has 6 goals so far this season. Hakimi, Verratti, Mendes, Sergio Ramos, these are all very good players, and there's far too much quality there for them to not top this group. But I'd be amazed if they got the balance right. They failed to get it right last season. We saw it at the Etihad. We saw it against Real Madrid. That front three, whilst extremely gifted, is flawed as a collective and as a team, which is what really matters. And we've already seen that this season with Mbappe basically having a temper tantrum for one of his teammates not passing to him. Mbappe chose to stay at PSG for another few seasons, and we all know the reason why he stayed there. And I think that decision perfectly illustrates the problem at PSG. They don't have the right mentality, and they're weak in that respect. When things are going well for them, sure, they're unstoppable. But let's see what happens when they get to the later stages of the Champions League, when they come up against one of the big boys, when they go 1 goal down. Will we see a resurgence, or are we going to see what we've seen every single year for like the past 10 years? Capitulation. Those are my predictions. That's my Champions League preview. Let me know your predictions in the comments. Who's qualifying? Are there any dark horses? Who do you think is winning the whole competition? Is it finally City's year? Is it finally PSG's year? Let me know. Really hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.